I can't marry someone like you. Gasps exploded through the chapel. Cus Whitmore turned his back on Dahlia at the altar, leaving her humiliated in front of 200 witnesses. Then a voice cut through the chaos. Miss Mercer deserves better than this charade. Every head turned. Go Min Suk stood in the doorway. Midnight suit, dangerous eyes, the kind of power that makes rooms go silent. Go Min Suk, someone whispered. Chicago's most feared man walked down that aisle and extended his hand to her. You deserve better. Allow me to prove it. 6 months ago, he was just a client. Now he was her only escape. If you believe people deserve better than public humiliation, hit that subscribe button for Ebony and Pearl stories. Only people like Cus won't subscribe. 6 months earlier. Dahlia Mercer adjusted the silk scarf at her throat as she reviewed contracts spread across her desk at Whitmore Industries. At 30, she'd worked her way up to senior acquisitions manager through sheer determination, navigating a corporate world that often questioned her place in it. Her natural hair was styled in elegant braids today, her fitted burgundy dress both professional and striking. She'd learned early that excellence wasn't enough. She had to be excellent twice as much for half the recognition. Every merger she salvaged, every contract she negotiated, every disaster she prevented became another invisible contribution to Whitmore Industries' success. Dahlia, I need you on the Hanover merger, her boss called from his corner office, barely glancing up from his computer. Before she could respond, his son Cus appeared in her doorway, his smile easy and entitled. Actually, I was hoping Dahlia would join me for the new client meeting this afternoon. He leaned against her doorframe with practiced casualness. 3 o'clock. The Sejin Group from Seoul. Very high profile. Dahlia nodded, already pulling up the file, swallowing the familiar sting of being handed assignments Cus would later claim credit for. She'd stopped fighting that battle months ago, right around the time he'd proposed with his grandmother's ring and promises of partnership after their wedding. The Sejin Group file was surprisingly sparse. Massive conglomerate with interests spanning real estate, technology, and what the documentation tactfully called private security services. The meeting brief was deliberately vague, budget listed as substantial, timeline marked aggressive, client background filled with careful omissions that sent her professional instincts humming with caution. But Dahlia had built her career on turning vague briefs into closed deals. She prepared the conference room with her usual meticulous attention. Fresh flowers positioned to catch natural light, water glasses placed at precise intervals, temperature adjusted to comfortable but alert. Everything she did twice as well because being good enough had never been good enough. At exactly 3 o'clock, the conference room doors opened with quiet precision. The man who entered commanded immediate attention effortlessly. Korean, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, with an aura that made Dahlia's corporate instincts sharpen to a fine point. 2 suited men flanked him, their postures screaming security despite their polished appearance. They moved like shadows, present but not intrusive, dangerous but controlled. Mr. Go, Cus said, extending his hand with slightly too much eagerness. Welcome to Whitmore Industries. This is Dahlia Mercer, our acquisitions specialist. Go Min Suk's gaze traveled over Dahlia slowly, not lecherously, but with a thoroughness that made her skin warm. When he took her hand, his grip was firm, warm, holding a moment longer than professionally necessary. Miss Mercer, he said, his voice carrying a depth that resonated in her chest. His accent was barely noticeable but distinct, cultured. Your analysis of the Meridian deal last quarter was exceptional. I read it specifically. Dahlia blinked, genuinely caught off guard. You follow our mid-level acquisitions? A slight smile touched his lips, transforming his severe features into something almost approachable. I follow excellence wherever it appears. His gaze held hers with unsettling focus, even when others failed to properly credit it. Heat crept up Dahlia's neck. The barb was aimed directly at Cus, who'd presented that analysis to the board under his own name. She'd written every word, run every projection, but her name had appeared nowhere on the final presentation. Min Suk's dark eyes remained locked on hers, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, acknowledgement, a promise that he saw what others overlooked. Shall we discuss your project, Mr. Go? Dahlia said smoothly, gesturing to the conference table, trying to regain her professional footing. Once Cus closed the door, Min Suk's entire demeanor shifted incrementally, relaxing in a way that suggested he only dropped his guard in very specific circumstances. He settled into his chair with the ease of someone accustomed to controlling every room he entered. The meeting revealed that the Sejan Group wanted to acquire several distressed properties in Chicago's commercial district. The numbers were staggering. Tens of millions in capital, aggressive timelines that would require navigating complex regulatory frameworks, and acquisition targets that suggested either brilliant strategy or dangerous ambition. As Dahlia outlined the regulatory obstacles and potential solutions, Min-suk listened with complete attention, occasionally asking questions that revealed a mind as sharp as cut glass. His focus never wavered from her face, like her words carried weight beyond their professional content. The zoning issues alone will take at least 3 months to navigate, Dahlia explained, pulling up property maps on her tablet. But if we approach the City Planning Commission through the economic development angle rather than standard commercial rezoning, we could potentially expedite the process while maintaining compliance. Min-suk finished, nodding. Brilliant. Most consultants would have recommended the standard channels. Most consultants don't understand that Chicago politics runs on relationships and strategic framing, Dahlia said, meeting his gaze directly. Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, interest, something more she couldn't quite name. Miss Mercer will be your primary contact throughout this process, Cuss announced at the meeting's conclusion, clearly eager to delegate the actual work while positioning himself to claim credit for the results later. Excellent, Min-suk said, but his eyes never left Dahlia's face. I prefer working with competence. He paused, then added with deliberate emphasis, and integrity. After he left, his security team falling into formation around him like satellites orbiting a dark star, Dahlia sat alone in the conference room. Her hands were unsteady, her heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with professional pressure. Something had shifted in that meeting. Something fundamental and irreversible. She didn't know it yet, but Go Min-suk had just walked into her carefully constructed life and marked it for demolition. If you can't stand people like Cuss who take credit for others' work, hit subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and comment what time you're watching this. Let's stand together against workplace manipulation. Only toxic bosses won't engage. Over the following weeks, Dahlia found herself in frequent communication with Min-suk about the Sejan Group acquisitions. Their meetings evolved from sterile conference rooms to more intimate settings. A Korean restaurant he owned in the West Loop, where he introduced her to dishes whose names she couldn't pronounce but whose flavors she'd never forget. Then a gallery opening in River North, where they discussed property values while surrounded by abstract art that cost more than her annual salary. Eventually, his penthouse office overlooking Lake Michigan, where Chicago sprawled below them like a glittering promise. The meetings were ostensibly about properties, permits, timelines. But somewhere between regulatory frameworks and zoning ordinances, the questions shifted. Tell me about growing up in Atlanta, Min-suk said one evening, setting aside acquisition documents like they suddenly didn't matter. Dahlia hesitated, then found herself talking about her grandmother who'd raised her after her parents died, about Sunday dinners that stretched into evenings, about learning to see beauty in the architecture of a city rebuilding itself. She talked about what drew her to real estate. Not the money but the stories buildings told, the lives they housed, the dreams they sheltered. And Min-suk listened. Not with the polite attention people gave while waiting for their turn to speak, but with absolute focus, like her words mattered, like she mattered. Something long dormant in Dahlia's chest began to wake, stretching toward the light of genuine attention. Meanwhile, at home with Cuss, everything was deteriorating in slow motion. He worked late every night, or claimed to. Wedding planning, which he'd promised to share, fell entirely on Dahlia's shoulders. She scheduled tastings, confirmed vendors, managed the guest list, all while maintaining her demanding career. Cuss contributed criticism. Maybe hit the gym more before the wedding? He suggested one evening, his tone casual but his eyes assessing. You know how photos are. They add 10 pounds. His mother's texts arrived with increasing frequency. Something more conservative for the family photos? And, we want you to feel comfortable, but also appropriate. The subtext was clear. Dahlia needed modification, adjustment, improvement. Then there was the social media discovery that shouldn't have surprised her but did. Cuss's gym trainer, blonde, toned, everything Dahlia supposedly wasn't, appeared in posts he'd failed to make private. His friends made comments about Dahlia's appearance wrapped as jokes they all supposedly shared. Every interaction made her feel smaller, less than, a project requiring constant fixing. She deleted messages without responding, swallowed hurt like medicine, measured her worth by others' increasingly critical vision. When had she stopped believing she deserved more? When had accepting less become her default setting? Then she'd meet with Min-suk and remember what being seen felt like. The turning point came on an evening in Min-suk's penthouse office. They were reviewing property surveys, Thai takeout spread between them, working late because the City Planning Commission had requested additional documentation. Chicago lights glittered below them, the city she'd conquered professionally but compromised personally. "Why aren't you running your own firm?" Min-suk asked suddenly, setting down his pen. Dahlia looked up from the documents. "Because Kus asked me to marry him, and his father promised me a partnership after the wedding." The words sounded hollow even to her own ears, like reading lines from a script she'd stopped believing in. Min-suk set down his pen with deliberate care. "You're settling." "I'm being practical," Dahlia countered, defensive. "You're accepting crumbs from a man who should be worshipping the ground you walk on." His intensity made her pulse quicken. "When did you stop believing you deserved the feast?" Silence filled the space between them. Dahlia had no answer, just the uncomfortable weight of truth she'd been avoiding. Below them, Chicago lights glittered like scattered diamonds, the city she'd conquered inch by inch while giving away pieces of herself to someone who saw her as insufficient. Min-suk leaned forward, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. "You're extraordinary, Dahlia. The only person who doesn't see it is you." "You barely know me," she whispered, the defense mechanism automatic. "I know you turn impossible deals into closed contracts. I know you handle dismissal with grace when most would burn bridges. I know you work twice as hard for half the recognition and never complain. I know you see buildings as stories instead of transactions." His voice dropped lower. "I know when you laugh at something genuinely funny, you cover your mouth like you're apologizing for taking up space. And I know you deserve a man who celebrates every inch of you instead of suggesting you become less." The words settled in her chest like stones, heavy with truth she'd avoided for too long. His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers, the almost contact more charged than full embrace. "But this is just business," he said finally, withdrawing. "After the deal closes, you'll marry Kus and build your safe life." Both of them knew something had shifted irrevocably. Both of them knew safe had become another word for suffocating. That night, Dahlia lay awake in her apartment, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed, another text from Kus. "Photographer wants to know if you're okay with them using filters on the wedding shots. Might help with, you know." She deleted it without responding. Min-suk's words echoed. "When did you stop believing you deserved the feast?" She couldn't remember when accepting crumbs had become normal, and that was the most damning answer of all. The wedding was 3 months away. The partnership was promised. Family expectations loomed. Deposits were paid. She'd built a cage from practicality and other people's comfort with her smallness, and now she was locked inside. At their next meeting, Min-suk's expression was grave, his security detail tighter than usual. He dismissed his guards before speaking. "There's danger in my world, Dahlia." "What kind of danger?" She kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. "People who would use you to get to me if they knew what you've come to mean to me." The confession hung between them, charged and terrifying. "And what do I mean to you?" Min-suk's jaw clenched, his control visibly fracturing. "Everything I didn't know I was missing." If you can't stand people who make their partners feel small, hit subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and comment, "Everyone deserves respect." Only manipulators like Kus won't engage. Silence filled the penthouse, heavy with the weight of Min-suk's confession. Dahlia's heart hammered against her ribs, her hands unsteady on her water glass. "Everything I didn't know I was missing." The words echoed in the space between them, impossible to take back, impossible to ignore. "But after this deal closes, you'll marry Kus, build your safe life," Min-suk continued, his voice carefully controlled. "And forget about the Korean businessman who complicated things." "What if I don't want safe anymore?" Dahlia heard herself say. His jaw clenched, a visible internal battle between desire and protection playing across his features. "You should. My world destroys beautiful things." He stood abruptly, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows where Chicago sprawled below like promises and threats intertwined. Dahlia followed, standing beside him as city lights glittered in the darkness. "The Sejin Group isn't just real estate, Dahlia." His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "Private security means territorial control, protection services, operations that exist in gray areas the law pretends not to see." "I figured as much," she said quietly. I inherited my father's position as head of Chicago's Korean organized crime network. There are rival organizations who'd use anyone close to me as leverage. He turned to face her, his expression grave. I've already had to increase security protocols because of our meetings. People have noticed. They're watching. Fear flickered through Dahlia, not for herself but for what choosing him would mean. The danger, the uncertainty, the life lived looking over her shoulder. I should never have let this start, Min-suk said, something like pain in his voice. Should never have been selfish enough to pursue you. You didn't pursue, Dahlia countered. We found each other. His hand reached toward her face, trembling slightly, then dropped before making contact. This is where it has to end, Dahlia. Before you're in real danger. But they both knew it was already too late. The following week, Dahlia threw herself into work, avoiding both men. Min-suk through professional distance, Kus through sheer exhaustion. But Kus's control only increased. More comments about her appearance, more criticism wrapped as concern, more wedding demands that fell entirely on her shoulders. His mother's calls came daily now. You'll be representing the Whitmore name, dear. We just want to make sure everything is appropriate. The subtext was always clear. Dahlia needed modification. Kus's father reminded her at every opportunity about the partnership waiting after the wedding. You've earned it, Dahlia. This marriage will be good for everyone. She ran the cost-benefit analysis like a business deal. Partnership, security, respectability versus truth, passion, danger. On paper, the choice was obvious. In her heart, the answer was becoming equally clear, just in the opposite direction. Min-suk's emails were now purely professional. No more late-night meetings, no personal questions, no intensity that made her feel seen. The ache of his absence was physical proof of how deep this had gone. Kus took her to dinner one evening, being charming in a way that felt performative after Min-suk's raw honesty. I know I've been hard on you, he said, reaching across the table for her hand. Wedding stress. But we're a team, right? Dahlia nodded numbly, going through the motions, letting him hold her hand even though every cell in her body screamed this isn't right. His kiss at the end of the evening was perfunctory, expected, feeling like betrayal even though he was her fiancé. That night, she stared at her engagement ring, symbol of practical choice over passionate truth. Is safety worth slow suffocation? 2 months before the wedding, the breaking point arrived at a dress fitting. Kus's mother and sister surrounded her in the bridal boutique, their comments subtle but cutting. Maybe we could take it in here? Just a few pounds would make such a difference. Well, at least the dress will photograph well with the right angles. His mother smiled with practiced warmth. We've hired an excellent photographer who knows how to minimize concerns. Dahlia smiled through the humiliation, accepting their helpful suggestions, disappearing piece by piece in the boutique's flattering mirrors. Then Kus arrived. He looked at her standing in the wedding gown, and Dahlia saw it. Visible disappointment in his eyes before he schooled his expression into something neutral. He pulled her aside, voice low. Maybe we should postpone a few months? Give you time to. Clarity struck like lightning. He's ashamed of her. Always has been. I'm just thinking of you, Kus backtracked quickly. The photos last forever. He saw her as acceptable with modifications, tolerable with adjustments, a project requiring constant fixing. Min-suk's words echoed in her mind. You're extraordinary. The only person who doesn't see it is you. I need air, Dahlia said, walking out of the boutique still wearing the wedding gown. She sat on a bench outside, the city moving around her, a bride alone in her dress like a living metaphor. Her phone buzzed. Min-suk's name appearing for the first time in weeks. Are you all right? I heard about the fitting. How did you know? She typed back. I'm always watching. Making sure you're safe even if I can't be near you. Tears blurred her vision. I'm not all right. I haven't been for a long time. Tell me where you are. 20 minutes later, a black car pulled up. Min-suk emerged with his suit jacket, draping it over her shoulders to cover the wedding dress. He offered his hand without questions, just quiet understanding. She took it. The drive to his penthouse was silent, security discreet but present. Inside, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows and city lights, Dahlia felt like she was floating above consequences. Min-suk brought her tea, sat across from her, not too close, letting her control the distance. Everything spilled out, the comments, the shame, the feeling of slowly disappearing while everyone called it love. He listened without interruption, giving her the complete attention she'd learned to crave. "Why do you care?" she finally asked. "We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. I know your strength, your brilliance, your grace." His dark eyes held hers. "And I know I'm falling in love with you, which is the most dangerous thing I've ever done." Dahlia stood, crossing to him without hesitation. The kiss she initiated was desperate and certain, months of restrained tension finally breaking free. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her close, deepening the connection as they moved toward the windows. Against the glass with Chicago as their witness, Dahlia whispered, "I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. There's no going back from this," Min-suk warned, even as his hands traced her spine. "Good. I don't want to go back." The night that followed was connection beyond physical, two people recognizing home in each other despite every logical reason why they shouldn't. Morning light found Dahlia in his bed, Min-suk's arm around her waist, the engagement ring still on her finger like an accusation. The wedding was 6 weeks away. Everything was about to burn. If you believe nobody should be body-shamed by the person who's supposed to love them, hit subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and comment, "Love sees beauty." Only shallow people like Kuss's family won't engage. Dawn light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting Min-suk's penthouse in shades of gold and amber. Dahlia woke to his arm around her waist, the weight of it feeling like safety and certainty. Her engagement ring caught the morning light, a symbol of the life she needed to dismantle. Min-suk stirred, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "No regrets. Only that I waited this long," Dahlia said honestly. Reality settled over them like a weight. She had to return home, face Kuss, end the engagement properly. The wedding was 6 weeks away, deposits paid, families notified, her entire future mapped out in someone else's vision. "Let me handle it," Min-suk offered. "One word and he'll understand you're protected." "No." Dahlia turned to face him. "I need to do this myself. Not as your territory, as my choice." Respect flickered in his dark eyes, acceptance of her autonomy even when he clearly wanted to shield her from difficulty. He won't take it well. Men like Kuss don't handle rejection. "Then he'll learn," Dahlia said, feeling strength solidify in her chest. "I'm done being manageable." They made a plan. She'd go to Kuss that evening, end the engagement cleanly, return deposits, break it off with the dignity he'd never shown her. Min-suk's concern was visible, but he agreed to her terms with one compromise: security. "This is Ji-woo," he said, introducing a quiet, capable woman who would shadow Dahlia everywhere. "She's the best." Min-suk's world was closing around her protectively, and for once, Dahlia didn't feel suffocated by someone's care. That evening, Dahlia arrived at Kuss's downtown condo with Ji-woo waiting discreetly in the lobby. Kuss opened the door, surprise crossing his features. "Where were you last night? Your phone was off." "We need to talk," Dahlia said, stepping inside. "About the seating chart? I told you to handle. I can't marry you, Kuss. I'm ending our engagement." He laughed. Actually laughed, like the idea of her leaving was absurd. "You're joking. The wedding's in 6 weeks. Everything's paid for. I'll handle the cancellations and financial losses." Her voice was calm, steady. His laughter died as reality registered. "This is about that Korean client, isn't it?" Dahlia removed her engagement ring, placing it on his kitchen counter with quiet finality. "You're throwing away our future for what? Some business fling?" His voice rose, anger replacing disbelief. "I'm not throwing away anything. There was never a real future here." Cruelty emerged in Kuss's expression, the mask finally slipping completely. "You think someone like him actually wants you? You're a novelty, Dahlia. Something exotic to play with until he gets bored." The same diminishment, just different words. The pattern that proved exactly why she had to leave. "My father promised you partnership. You'll have nothing without me. Then I'll build something myself." Peace settled over Dahlia like armor. "I'd rather have nothing than this." Kuss threw the ring across the room, accusations spilling out, revealing the entitled cruel man behind the charming facade. She'd been seeing glimpses of this all along, excusing it as stress, as wedding pressure, as anything but what it was. His true nature. "You'll regret this," he spat. "You think you can just walk away?" Ji-woo appeared in the doorway, her presence quiet but unmistakably protective. Kuss's eyes widened. Who the hell is this? Dahlia walked out while he shouted behind her, and with each step, she felt lighter. Freer. More herself than she'd been in years. The next morning, Dahlia arrived at Whitmore Industries to resign in person. Kuss's father sat across from her, shocked then furious about the broken engagement. You used my son for career advancement. Your son used me for respectability while sleeping with his trainer. Dahlia slid printed evidence across his desk, social media posts, timestamps, hotel receipts. She'd done her research after the breakup, found more than she'd expected. Genuine shock crossed his face. Apparently Kuss had hidden that aspect well. The older man's anger deflated into disappointment in his son. Stay anyway, he offered after a long silence. Take the partnership. You've earned it regardless. I can't build my future in a place connected to this pain, Dahlia said, standing. His expression shifted, seeing her differently, not as his son's fiancée, but as a formidable professional making a principled choice. Go Min-suk is dangerous, Miss Mercer. Whatever you think you're starting with him is my choice to make, Dahlia interrupted. Dangerous doesn't always mean wrong. He sighed, resignation in his features. Then I wish you luck. You'll need it. Dahlia cleared her desk, said goodbye to colleagues, closed that chapter of her life. Kuss didn't come in, couldn't face either her or his father. She walked out of Whitmore Industries unemployed but unchained. 2 weeks later, Dahlia was helping Min-suk with property acquisitions as an unofficial consultant. Their relationship was open now, public in his circles, shocking to many who knew his reputation for isolation. The Korean community gossiped. Rival organizations assessed. His protection was constant, security details, careful routes, controlled environments. She was learning to live in his world with its different rules and dangers. She applied her skills to his legitimate business expansion while beginning to plan her own firm. Min-suk's support was genuine, not controlling. He wanted her success, not her dependence. Partnership versus ownership. Collaboration versus control. The difference was everything. Then the first real threat arrived, a photo of them together, sent to Min-suk's office with a message, "She's an easy target." His fury was carefully controlled. Security increased immediately. Dahlia felt her first real understanding of what his enemies might do. I can protect you, but I can't make you completely safe, Min-suk said honestly. Not while we're together. Then we stay together and stay careful, Dahlia answered without hesitation. He suggested making their relationship extremely public, demonstrating she was untouchable. They would appear at a major charity gala together, forcing recognition and respect. Come with me, he said. Show everyone you chose something better. The date of the gala was the same day she was supposed to have married Kuss. Yes, Dahlia agreed. The irony was perfect. Kuss would know. Everyone would know. It wasn't about revenge, but the satisfaction was undeniable. Shopping for a gown, Min-suk insisted she choose something that made her feel powerful. She selected red. Bold. Unapologetic. Stunning. You're going to stop every heart in that room, he said, watching her model it. For the first time in years, Dahlia felt it, genuine confidence, not the performance she'd learned to give to make others comfortable. 3 days until the gala. 3 days until she walked into her former world on the arm of Chicago's most dangerous man. 3 days until Kuss would see exactly what he'd lost and who she'd become. The anticipation was electric. So was the uncertainty of how Kuss would retaliate. If you can't stand people who promise partnership but deliver control, hit subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and comment, I choose freedom. Only manipulators like Kuss's family won't support real independence. The evening of the gala arrived with the weight of symbolism. In Min-suk's penthouse, Dahlia stood before the mirror in her red gown, her natural hair styled in elegant waves that framed her face. For the first time in years, she looked at her reflection and saw someone magnificent. Min-suk entered the room and stopped, his expression shifting into something reverent. He crossed to her slowly, eyes never leaving her face. You're breathtaking, he said, the words carrying genuine awe. I feel it, Dahlia replied, her voice thick with emotion. That's what you gave me, the ability to feel beautiful. His hands settled on her waist, pulling her close until their foreheads touched. I'm terrified of losing you. You won't, she promised. Not to danger, not to doubt, not to anything. The kiss they shared was tender, promising, sealing a commitment that needed no formal declaration. Outside, security waited discreetly, routes planned, contingencies prepared. During the drive to the gala, Min-suk's hand never left hers. Whatever came next, this was right. Chicago's most prestigious hotel ballroom glittered with wealth and power. Dahlia and Min-suk entered together, his hand at her back, possessive and protective. The room noticed immediately, whispers spreading like ripples across water. Both their names carried weight here. Dahlia's former professional circles recognized her competence. Min-suk's reputation preceded him in every space he occupied. Together, they commanded attention. Dahlia walked through the crowd like she belonged, because she did. Old colleagues approached with careful respect, acknowledging her new position. Min-suk introduced her not as an accessory but as an equal, his pride visible in every gesture. They circulated through business associates and former clients, and Dahlia realized something profound. She wasn't his trophy. He was showcasing her brilliance, amplifying her presence instead of diminishing it. The contrast to Kasa's constant attempts to make her smaller couldn't have been sharper. When the dance floor opened, Min-suk led her into a waltz. They moved together in perfect synchronization, the world narrowing to just the two of them. "I love you, Dahlia Mercer," he said, his voice carrying certainty. Publicly, officially, irrevocably. "I love you too," she answered. Dangerously, completely, without reservation. The moment was exactly when she would have been marrying Kus. Instead, she was dancing with her chosen future. Then Kus appeared. He entered with his gym trainer on his arm, alcohol making him brave enough to approach. "Dahlia, we need to talk." Min-suk shifted subtly, protective without being obvious. Dahlia remained calm. "There's nothing to discuss, Kus. You left me for this? Some criminal with money." His bitterness was poorly masked. "I left you because you never saw me," Dahlia corrected. "He does. You think he'll actually commit? You're a phase, Dahlia." Min-suk's voice cut through with quiet authority. "You're embarrassing yourself and insulting her. Walk away." Kus made his critical mistake, reaching for Dahlia's arm aggressively. Ji-woo appeared instantly, blocking him with professional efficiency. The scene was drawing attention, guests watching with undisguised interest. "She was mine first," Kus accused. "You stole her." Dahlia stepped forward, her voice carrying power she'd found in herself. "I was never yours, Kus. I was convenient, manageable, useful." She paused, letting the words settle. "He didn't steal me. I chose him. I chose myself." "You wanted someone who'd be grateful to be with you," she continued. "He wants someone who challenges him to be better." "You're making a mistake," Kus said desperately. "This won't last." "Maybe," Dahlia acknowledged. "But I'd rather have real for whatever time we get than fake for a lifetime." Min-suk pulled a velvet box from his jacket, opening it before the watching crowd. Inside was a ring, not an engagement ring, but something equally significant, uniquely designed, obviously expensive. "Dahlia Mercer, I'm not asking you to marry me tonight," Min-suk said clearly. "I'm asking you to build a future with me. Whatever that looks like. However long it takes." Through tears, Dahlia answered. "Yes. Absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her right hand and kissed her as the ballroom erupted in murmurs. Kus stood frozen, watching the woman he'd dismissed choose spectacular over safe. After Kus's defeat, Min-suk led Dahlia to a private balcony overlooking the city. "I need to tell you something about tonight," he said, his expression serious. "Your original wedding was supposed to happen today." "I know," Dahlia said. "That's why I wore red instead of white." Surprise flickered across his features. She'd known, chosen this deliberately. "Today was supposed to be about settling," she explained. "Instead it's about choosing." "There's more," Min-suk continued. "Kus was never going to give you that partnership. I had it investigated. His father planned to use you then retire you to focus on family." He showed her documents, internal emails, plans to sideline her post-wedding. Anger flashed through Dahlia, not surprise but confirmation of suspicions she'd ignored. "I should have told you sooner," Min-suk said. "I needed to choose to leave him for me," Dahlia replied. "Not because of what you found." He nodded, respecting her autonomy even in revelation. "What happens now?" she asked. "With us. I'm working to legitimize my business. It'll take time, maybe years. There will still be danger, still be complications. I know, Dahlia said. I'm choosing it anyway. Min-suk pulled her close, city lights glittering below them. I will spend every day proving you made the right choice. And I'll spend every day building something worthy of the faith you have in me.